G'day everyone, hello and welcome to today's video. Sorry I missed last week, I got a little busy. I think that's just going to happen every now and again. For today's video, I'm wanting to go over the Zao. So I wanted to go over them earlier, but I was waiting for just a little bit more artwork on them. Okay, so the Zao are probably... I look at them as like in terms of where they fit in game design or world placement, as a bit of a parallel to the Nephilim, in that they are a very, their nature is very strange, but they have a very different culture. They also occupy that real sort of non-technological, non-sci-fi culture. So they're really like quite, hunters and gatherers, how they are on their homeworld of Praid. So these guys, in terms of the nature versus nurture tension, they're an interesting one. Let's explore them together, and we'll go through. Yeah. Okay. So firstly, we'll take you through the history for these guys. Okay, so we've just got this little intro page here, and then, wait, I have the wrong page listed. There we go. Cool. Okay, let's go through this, and then we'll go through some of the finer details. Okay. We Zao are all about balance. We must carefully manage our size, our bodies, our minds, our tribes, and our environments. Always mindful to not take too much or too little, and always consider the future, for Zao without harmony may destroy all. Zarnir, chief of the Amberbark Pathfinders. As the Great War raged on, the Archons became increasingly desperate, turning to technology they did not understand, and creating weapons that they could not control. Among the most devastating of these was the contagion known as Zao. This black sludge would hunt down and eat all biological matter before starving and consuming itself. Though only used for a few months before the end of the war, it was utilized to great effect on numerous planets and Nephilim fleets. This cycle of consumption and starvation continued on all planets that the Zao were deployed to, except for a small, idyllic world known as Praid. On Praid, the Zao managed to survive longer than ever before, as a large Nephilim brood had attempted to settle there after the departure of the Exion, and they fought the Zao back. Over decades, the Zao evolved beyond its original design, becoming self-aware. It split itself up into individual bipedal forms and developed a society in an effort to avoid starvation. The bioweapon had become a people, learning what they could from the Nephilim, their environment, and themselves. They developed a tribal culture as well as primitive tools and a language, but their hunger remained. Survival was primarily a battle within themselves. If they could not reach a sustainable equilibrium in themselves and with their planet, they would perish. The Zao learned that their size was an important component to their nature. The larger they grew, the greater their intelligence, but also the greater their hunger. They not only split themselves down to manageable sizes, but also divided up their tribe to spread across Praid's many diverse biomes. The Zao were aware of the Great War, space travel, other planets, and advanced technology, but they were primarily focused on keeping themselves under control and forming a balance with Praid. Most Nephilim genocrats on Praid fled to other worlds, dooming the majority of their abandoned forces to feralhood and giving the planet over to the Zao. During this time, the Zao learned to construct more advanced bodies for themselves, not just using materials from their environment, which also gave each Zao tribe a unique aesthetic based on their surroundings, but also to alter their bodies to give themselves crude organs and a skeletal structure. Prayed Zhao are also known for their masks. This was one of their first developments when they broke themselves up into individuals. They act as a means of identifying each other and give a focal point during conversation. This process of battling the Nephilim, gaining self-awareness, forming new bodies, and spreading their tribes across the planet took the Zhao over a century, but has recently been disrupted by the Twyfar. On their journey out of uncharted space and back to the fallen remains of the Archon Empire, the Twyfar encountered Prayed and the Zhao. They saw both great danger and potential in the Zhao. They chose to quarantine the planet and keep its location a well-guarded secret, but also taking some trusted Zhao with them, eventually all the way to Haven. Most Zhao have struggled to find a place in their new strange home. They are often mistaken for Nephilim, but seen by the Eden Brood as a dangerous bioweapon that was designed to kill them and could destroy a planet. Their ability to serve on spacecraft is limited due to their hunger, and a lack of technical skills often forces them into the darker corners of society as waste disposal and cleaning workers. Many Zhao become disheartened and seek the familiar by joining a Zhao tribe on the planet on the jungle world. By joining a Zhao tribe on the jungle world of Mishpasha. But some resourceful Zhao have moved into Palantir facilities where they are treated well. Zhao do not need oxygen and can survive on Palantir space stations and spacecraft that have no life support systems, though they are dependent on the Palantir for organic food. The Palantir are sympathetic to the Zhao, do not fear them, and see their great potential to learn and grow. The Zhao have a complex relationship with the Twyfar. They are thankful for their elevation of Prayed, but chafe under the power that the Twyfar have over their species. The Twyfar are the unofficial rulers of the Zhao, as their governing choirs and choruses are in control of all travel from Prayed, and are seen as responsible for wayward Zhao by the larger Haven community. While it is true that some Zhao succumb to their great hunger, others are able to raise themselves up to become respected scientists, technicians, and warriors. Most notable of the Zhao is the wise Great Chief Zarnir of the Amberbark Pathfinder tribe on Mishpasha, and the intelligent geneticist Zaquin of the Silver Mask Pact. Cool. Okay, so you've seen here just some artwork that you would have seen from first edition. I'm hoping to get some bigger new illustrations of the Zhao done, but I'm wanting to prioritize what my artists are working at the moment. So I've got them hopefully finishing up some projects so they can do their front covers, and then after the front covers, we're going to get some new Zhao art. I'm thinking I want to see a Zhao split. So that's the way Zhao reproduce, is that they kind of get to the end of their life, where their brain starts to get a little bit foggier and they get hungrier. So they eat a lot, build up their mass, and then split into two, and you've got two new Zhao. So I'd like to get some artwork of that process because I think it's kind of unique. Cool. Okay, so let's have a look at this as some of the subcultures. So this here is the classic Zhao. This is the organic. So these are the Zhao that come from Prayed. They grew up in the wilds, and you've got all different sorts of Zhao. So you would have Zhao that like live in the ocean, some in Arctic areas, some in desert biomes, all different places. This one, you're looking at a forest Zhao, so they're known for their longer limbs, for faster movement, and for throwing objects. Whereas the water tribe, for example, not only just making bodies out of coral and all that stuff that could be quite cool, but they also travel with the currents and the flows, and they're traders. So yeah, this is the classic Zhao. Okay. Then we have a look at, this is another group called the Chromes. So these are Zhao who have really moved, like they've really taken on that board, that whole thing of adjusting yourself to your environment. So Zao, they construct their own bodies for themselves, largely out of what they eat or there's materials in their environment, to give them, which is just this sludge matter form. Okay, and the chromes are very modern, so they're making bodies out of plastics and metals and stuff like that. And some of them would have, like, particularly if they manage to be a successful Zao, they might actually have crafted bodies for themselves, so they look almost like robots. But then you can also get impoverished Zao, and this is a large number of chromes. Okay, and these are the ones who live in the dark, rejected corners of society. They make bodies out of junk, scrap, leftovers, refuse, and yeah. Okay, so that's these are the chromes, and some of these are particularly well known for their partnership with the Palantor. So the Palantor, they see how just technologically marvelous the Zao are. So Palantor are not overly impressed by the achievements of the Archons, okay? Because remember, they're used to like the height of human technology. Well, not the height, but they were there towards the end. So they're used to a certain amount of marvelousness, but they look at the Archons and they concentrate on all this biotech stuff and the Exion and what it made. They don't really think they're that amazing, the Keltorans or the Legion or the Nephilim. But the Zao look like something special to them. They see real potential. This was amazing, what the Archons have made. And no doubt, and here's some little tidbits for you. There's no doubt that the Archons used Nephilim, just because it was towards the end of the war. They would have used a lot of techniques that were used to craft the Nephilim within the Zao. There's also a chance that the same people who made the Exion were also involved in the creation of the Zao. Now, the creation of the Exion required a vast amount of resources. So I'm not saying the Zao are the Exion. They're not. Okay. But there might have been some sort of similarities there as a potential, just a plot hook, you know. I'm never going to answer that question, but that could have been the case. Yeah, and so the Palantor have a number of Zao that live on their space facilities, and they bring them up and craft them and make bodies for them and guide them and use them as, you know, an additional contributing force to their endeavors in various ways. Cool. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one here. So this is the Wilders. So immediately you look at these guys and think, oh, these are just, they look like bad guys. This is the Zao who have let their hunger take over and they've become monsters. No. Okay? The Wilders are Zao that have specifically rejected this cultural pressure that everybody else has over the Zao. So the Zao are in this perpetual state of kind of wanting to be ignored and not to draw too much attention to themselves, because they could be seen as a threat. And so they make themselves very, you know, bipedal humanoid bodies, you know, very safe looking. They've crafted, you know, just an appearance of themselves that make themselves not stand out. Okay? Just trying to fit in, just to be overlooked, just to find their place within society. Whereas the Wilders are like, no. We are going to embrace our Zaoness. We are going to explore the potentials of our body crafting abilities and our create our own cultures that is unique to us and our needs and our strengths, that offsets our own weaknesses. And so that's what the Wilders do. Okay? So they usually have very strange bodies because they're trying to find more optimal forms than just this standard boring bipedal form. And so you get a lot of weirdness in there. You also have a thing. The Wilders still wear masks, okay, and the thought is, well, didn't the Zhao have masks as sort of just a way of socially fitting in or something like that? But the way that masks come from is when the Zhao were originally attacking the planet Praid, you had this massive. They kind of eventually, the bits kind of ate and consumed and congealed into this one massive Zhao called the Uber Zhao. And this Uber Zhao was, because it was so large, it was super intelligent, basically saw its own demise coming and survived for long enough to kind of compute a way out of this trap, because it's massively big, so it's massively hungry, like uncontrollably so, no matter how smart it is, okay? But it managed to somehow figure a way out of itself and split itself up and create the other Zhao. And this is where the mask wearing came from, because the mask came from the Uber Zhao. And so the Wilders see this as a unique Zhao cultural icon, okay? And yeah, and so there's also a bit of a sense that okay, so I'm going to talk a bit loosely here as mostly sort of some maybe plot ideas, or just maybe think about the Uber Zhao as being, it's a bit like the Zhao's god in a way, or its creation story. It is the one Zhao where they all came from, and so there's some shared traits that all Zhao from Praid have, and they come because they all originally came from this original massive Zhao. And plot idea. The Zhao were created as a weapon, okay? It is possible that the Uber Zhao knew that it was going to fail in its mission, and is hardwired to succeed in its mission of eating all Nephilim, and or eventually killing the Exion or something like that. And so this Zhao computed a long-term, century-long plan where the Zhao were going to succeed in this mission by splitting itself up, but buried within the structure of all Zhao that come from it is sort of this ticking time bomb that eventually, once they've sort of split and spread, and eventually in the future, something's going to go chick, and they're going to just turn back into a weapon form and start eating everything, particularly, or maybe just eating everything where a Nephilim is. So there's a chance that that could have actually happened. And the Nephilim, they don't trust us out, because they know what they're made for. The Nephilim flesh is particularly yummy to Zhao. Out of all things they like to eat, that is their favorite. Yeah, okay. So this is the Zhao, but kind of exploring their nature a little bit more. They're also mentioned in... Oh, wait, before I get to that, that's Fragged Kingdom. Okay, before I get to that, we've also got some example tribes mentioned through here. So these are some of the major tribes around Haven. Okay, the White Tide Traders, these are the ones from the Palantir. The Silver Mask Pact, a scientific. Chrome Zhao, who are trying to find a solution to their hunger. And the Grey Bone Marauders are a group of Wilders who effectively... They're kind of a bit monstery Zhao. They stowed away on the Twyfar ship, and then they've gone off and sort of made the bad antagonistic group. And then the Amberbark Pathfinders are a large traditionalist Zhao tribe on Mishpasha, and you can read more about them in Rachel Swagger's Guide to Mishpasha book. Cool. Okay, let's jump over here. So the Zhao are also mentioned in Fragged Kingdom. Okay, so they're called elementals in here. So this is a Zhao. And in the Fragged Kingdom lore, there is this... it's basically... The Zhao haven't managed to... And this is just a potential future. Okay, so don't take this as what's going to happen to them. It's what could happen. The Zhao have not cured their hunger, but somebody has altered their genetic structure so that they are no longer able to reproduce or grow or expand themselves. And so the amount of a Zhao is, that's what they are. And so the Zhao in Fragged Kingdom have learnt to basically really mastered making bodies for themselves out of their environments. Like this black sludge weaving amongst rocks and holding it together. And so think about like a larger percentage of their body is not Zhao. Okay? And you can have Zhao of all sorts of stuff is mentioned. So of course you've got the stone elementals, but also you can have Zhao who just have water. So they just look like a giant puddle, okay? Which they've sort of somehow managing to hold it together for themselves. And you've also got some of the Zhao mentioned like metal elementals who have like been on a Zhao who have gotten into like a big combat battlefield and have started making bodies for themselves out of the metal, the armor, the swords, the shields that were left behind there. So it's and yeah, so that's kind of just more of an alternate take on the Zhao, more of an exploration of their weird bodies. Yeah, I particularly like the Zhao. I know they're not as culturally big and as impactful as the other species, particularly because there's simply not that many of them out. So in Fragged Empire 2, I've got it 482,000 in and around Haven, unknown on Praid. The Twyfar keeping Praid's location a secret, by the way. So that's, in the grand scheme of things, like that's barely 500,000, and they just don't have anything technologically to give to the other species, so they're kind of weak on that political front. But I think it's a character that can be really interesting, and you do a lot of really interesting stuff with them. I think if you're a person who really likes weirdness or differentness, or not having boundaries like other people, the Zhao can be really fun because they're immune to everything but fire. And that kind of opens up some cool narrative options. It's good for problem solving game things, and you can also create your own body, draw yourself. If you're an artist, you come up with really weird designs. So yeah, I particularly like the Zhao. I think they're fun and a bit strange. I'm looking forward to getting some more art of them made up. Cool. Okay, take care everyone. I hope you have a great